Welcome to Ghana's official side event, which is taking place on the 6th of November at Glasgow, Zone C, the Grand Afrique Room. Without much ado, we are looking at how Ghana has, over the years, mobilized climate finance within the multilateral process. And we have capable panelists who are coming to share experiences that they have encountered over the years. So without much ado, let me quickly call on the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency in the person of Honorable Dr. Henry Kobla-Kukofu to give us the keynote address. Honorable, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Good morning to you all. MPs present, fellow Ghanaians, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is refreshing to meet once again at the official side event for Ghana and its partners. Let me also extend a special welcome to our partners and guests. Our gathering here is another excellent opportunity to showcase to the world the practical actions we are taking to mobilize green finance to tackle climate change. We also see this event as a unique platform to forge new partnerships and galvanize support for climate finance upscale. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Ghana, under the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, do recognize the prohibitive future cost of climate change and the counterproductive risk to our socio-economic gains. Therefore, responding to climate change is high on the national development agenda. To this end, Ghana has committed to implementing 47 mitigation and adaptation actions across 7 economic sectors in its nationally determined contributions to maximize the synergies between adaptation and economic diversification, resulting in mitigation co-benefits. Removing the systematic, institutional, policy, and financial bottlenecks is the surest way to make the nationally determined contributions work and positively affect the lives of the vulnerable. And here we're talking about women, children, and the elderly in our society. The updated NDCs must, among other things, have access to adequate finance and technology from the international and private sectors. And here I'd like to draw attention to the SDGs number 9, which finds itself at the center, calling for scientific innovation, technology advancement. Ghana requires between 9.3 and 15.5 billion US dollars of investment in order to fully realize the implementation of the 47 nationally determined contribution measures from 2020 to 2030. Out of that, 3.9 billion would be needed to implement the 16 unconditional programs of action till 2030. The remaining 5.4 billion for the 31 conditional programs of action would be mobilized from the public, international, and private sector sources and carbon markets. And here again, it is important to note that the current capital market point clearly to the fact that private sector holds almost 2/3 of the funding sources. So it is important that the private sector is drawn in as a major partner in this mobilization exercise. Ghana will need an additional $3 million US biannually to support coordination actions and the regular global reporting of the nationally determined contribution. In the pursuit of resource mobilization, the country has learned several lessons worthy of note. At today's side event, titled Mobilizing Green Finance to Catalyze Climate Action, Lessons from Multilateral and Bilateral Funds, Presenters from the various Ghanaian institutions will highlight their experiences with resource mobilization. Our partners from Lancaster University also explore how GCRF investment is helping to mobilize resources and future funding from both the public and private sectors to encourage eco-innovation and create a more circular, sustainable economy in Ghana and West Africa as a whole. To this end, I call on you as governments, businesses, especially development partners, to accelerate resource allocation to developing countries to stimulate our action to combat climate change. And this brings into mind the pledge of some 2-3 years back of $100 billion as seed money and annual incrementals. As of today, this money has not been realized. And our president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was quick to remind the world, particularly the G20 countries, of this important pledge and the need to redeem that. The time to act is now. There are two options available to us as mankind. And one is either we come together and forge partnership, finance all these actions, and move from ambition to actions to fight climate change head on. Or we look on unconcerned and continue to play the big man versus the lower man. That one we all sing together as the world. Let us endeavor to save the planet by coming together to find the needed financing for our determined contributions. Thank you very much. We look forward for greater participation from members, and the presenters will do justice to the jobs assigned to them. Thank you for your audience.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Henry Kokofu, the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency of Ghana. So without much ado, Lancaster University has been involved in community initiatives in Ghana, and key among them is the Recirculate and the Actuate project. So we will give them the opportunity to share their experiences in how they manage to mobilize resources from the United States, the UK government in undertaking those projects in Ghana and Nigeria. So I would leave the floor to Professor Kirk and Dr. Akanimo to give us their perspective. Prof, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Samuel. I'd just like to start by saying it's a real honour to be here with colleagues from Ghana. I thank the honourable gentleman for his very loquacious and insightful introductory presentation, so thank you very much for that. If I could have my presentation, please. Thank you. So, as Samuel has already indicated, we're doing a bit of a double act here today. So I will start, and then Dr. Akanimo will come in later on. So the focus of the project is about mobilizing green finance to catalyze climate change, and using our experiences within the Global Challenges Research Fund as a case study to develop the discussions today. So really, one of the big problems that we all face as a global society is waste, okay? And we see waste as being valueless. It is something that we throw away, okay? But in throwing away that, we cause all sorts of problems for ourselves, and these are very well documented. Okay, so to give you a feel for this, Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, produces around 62 million tons of solid waste a year, okay? And Ghana, although a smaller number, it's still quite a large one in the sense that it produces around 12,000 tons of dry waste per year as well. A lot of that waste is actually organic, so it's decomposable. And it becomes decomposed through microbial processes to produce carbon dioxide and methane, and it's well established how impactful those are on the environment and climate. And of course, but also it causes problems for contamination of surface and groundwaters, and impacts on human and environmental health. So what we're looking at in our experiences is how we take what we know and look to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, how we can go about developing clean, secure, sustainable supplies of water, food and energy, and how we use circular solutions to manage the problems that we faced around waste. So in 2015, the UK government announced that it would be investing £1.5 billion worth of funding into what we now know as the Global Challenges Research Fund. And this was a seminal moment in the UK, in the environment, the research sector and the university sectors, because what it allowed us to do was to address global challenges with partners around the world. And at Lancaster, we've invested a lot of money and effort and time into developing partnerships in West Africa, particularly Ghana and Nigeria. So using this funding, we were able to address global challenges using multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research to strengthen capability, research and innovation with our partner countries in West Africa. So very, very successful. And from that, we were able to develop research and capacity building in circular economy and eco-innovation. So circular economy is a concept where essentially you're trying to reduce waste in whatever you do to the absolute minimum, okay? And we do this by adopting the 4 R's principle: reduce, reuse, recycle, or repair, okay? Instead of throwing away. And so what is eco-innovation? Some of you may be familiar with this term, but others may not. So eco-innovation is where we develop new products, processes, interventions and services that deliver benefits to both society and the environment. It's solution-oriented, it's collaborative, and it's practical. And it's central to achieving net zero climate targets, addressing environmental crises, and delivering the UN Sustainable Development Goals as well. So how does this fit into our case study? Well, really, what we're talking about is a circular economy that takes waste and gives it value, okay? And move from valueless to valuable. So these wastes actually represent feedstocks for bioenergy. So producing sustainable energy in a way that is moving away from fossil fuels and from biomass burning. So in essence, we're looking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve human and environmental quality of health. Bioenergy is really very straightforward. It's been around for a very long period of time, but what it is producing is a sustainable energy that is carbon neutral and, of course, clean as well. Now, as with any process, it itself produces waste, and it produces these bioenergy residues. And what we know about those is that they're very, very nutritious. They contain nitrogen and phosphorus and also carbon. And by applying that to soil as a sustainable alternative to conventional inorganic nitrogen and inorganic phosphorus-based fertilizers, we actually reduce energy expenditure and environmental damage in these processes. And the digestate, the bioenergy residue, can also be used as a source of irrigation as well. Now, key to the success of this and other projects that have come out of the Global Challenges Research Fund is not only multidisciplinary collaboration within the research and university sectors, but also multi-sectoral collaboration. Multi-sectoral collaboration where the universities and research institutes are actively collaborating with the industrial sector, with government and policy, and perhaps, most importantly, with the communities that actually will benefit from these activities. Okay? And of course, the other key thing here is that it is multinational as well. So within our projects, we've got partners in Ghana, of course, Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, Malawi, Zambia, and Botswana. So it's a big project. And one of the doctrines that we've embraced is that we work together under equitable regime where we're co-designing, co-developing, and co-delivering on these projects. So Recirculate was the first big project that we embarked upon with partners, as I've already mentioned. £7 million worth of funding. And the fantastic thing about this was that the funding was not only available to UK participants, but also to our African participants, so in Ghana, in Nigeria, and the other countries. And Recirculate is an acronym for basically driving eco-innovation in Africa, capacity building for a safe, circular water economy. So a big challenge. Now, beyond the funding for Recirculate as a research platform, we were very, very keen to explore how we extend and maintain the project beyond its actual funding. Okay, so what we were very keen to do was to focus on capacity building and knowledge exchange. As a university player, that's very important to us, but also to think about how we could engage with the business community to actually extend and maintain the virtuous circular economy that we were developing in the Recirculate project. So from that, we have a very, very positive experience, a very positive case study. And we can use Recirculate and Actuate, which Akan will talk about in a moment, to try to leverage further funding. Green finance, as it's been called. Now, that might be with governments in Africa, it might be with the Ghanaian government, the Nigerian government, or another African government. It might be with the private sector. It might be with private-public partnerships as well. It might be with big donors like the African Development Bank, the African Union, or indeed the European Union through Horizon Europe as well. But by bringing these partners together, these donors, these actors, we really do believe that we will deliver real and meaningful impact in this area. So that's all I really wanted to say with regard to that. I mean, what I'd like to finish off by saying is that it's not easy. Okay, this is a massive challenge, not only in terms of what we're trying to deliver, but in terms of what we're trying to gain in terms of additional funding. And it takes time. What we know is that for any donor to be encouraged to offer financial support is that the partnerships have to be genuine. You have to be able to show that the partnerships are real. And we have to, display that it's multi-sectoral, okay? It has to be evidence-based. And we have to have a clear understanding of the problem. So on that, I'm going to pass on to my good colleague and friend Akan, who will continue the presentation.
Thank you very, very much. So research is fantastic, but except the impact it's felt on the ground, there remains a disconnect between the research and the communities. And so what have we done? So we applied for our funding. We're talking about the Mobilizing Green Finance for actual impact on the ground, and on a project called Accelerating the Adoption of Circular Sanitation Systems for Improved Health Outcomes, £700,000 project. And the idea was the fact that now waste as a value product, as it is, can only be felt except you show people that value. So what do? We are back on actually building above the ground digesters. And the location was specific, and we built one in a secondary school in Ghana and the other one in a university environment in Nigeria. It's very physical. And I think potentially what we did was to make it simple, cost-effective, was robust. It was fit for purpose, had some very powerful elements of maintenance, but also community ownership, and it could easily be repaired in case there was issues around faulting. Okay? And so to increase that capacity to help with education, in respect to the value of waste in systems, we also put together a mobile prototype. So you can move around and show schools, because ultimately, to solve the issue of climate change, the young generations have to be engaged. Okay? And so very simple examples of projects engagement in Ghana with secondary schools and primary schools, exhibition stands to show that actually waste is valuable. In Nigeria, we had engagements with stakeholder farmers who, even before now, almost felt like, well, it's just waste. And even if you ask them, would you use energy from waste, they're a bit worried. But unless you engage them in that process and show them the value that waste gives, then they will struggle. We have several engagements to show that actually waste as a product is valuable in systems. And ultimately, as far as we're concerned, this is very powerful, and it can only happen when there is mobilization of finance to actually solve the issue of climate change. It's about connecting the unconnected, the rural farmers, local communities, the villagers, individuals who don't understand these processes, and make it easy for them to appreciate the importance and the value that this gives. In summary, over the course of this project, we've had very major impacts. We've held 10 workshops, participants in hundreds, in 9 countries, and 7 residencies. During COVID, we also increased the impact and had even virtual engagement and impacts across different African countries. And these are our project partners. Now, on that note, I want to show you that actually mobilizing finance to solve the issue of climate change is practicable, but ultimately has got beneficial results if it is deployed on the ground with ownership from communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lancaster University, for that community action. At the leg of that, we will now move on to Energy Commission. Energy Commission is a state agency in Ghana responsible for licensing electrical energy appliances in Ghana. So Mr. Kofi Ajaku, he is the Director, Renewable Energy at the Energy Commission. So he is going to share with us the experiences that they have encountered in dealing with one of the multilateral funds, Global Environment Facility. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sami. Just as you put it, my assignment here this afternoon is to tell of a success story that emanated from dealing with a multilateral funding agency, Global Environment Facility. In 2010, approval was given by Jeff to implement a project in Ghana. The name of the project is Mark Full, Promoting of Appliance Energy Efficiency and Transformation of Refrigerating Appliance Market in Ghana. The background is that prior to this project, used imported inefficient refrigerating appliances dominated the cooling appliance market. They controlled about 80% of the market, which was very bad. So this was the financing structure. Jeff provided 1.7 million. Ghana government provided a counterpart funding of 2.2 million, plus an in-kind support of 800,000, all in USD. So the project kick-started. Let me walk you through the project components. The project had 8 components: strengthening of regulatory and institutional framework, design of certification, labeling and enforcement systems, training and public outreach, establishment of refrigerating appliance test facility, CFC and use appliance collection and disposal facilities, efficiency program evaluation and monitoring capacity development, pilot test of variety of rebate program designs, financial design of follow-up national market transformation. All these components were aimed at transforming the refrigerating appliance market in Ghana. And these were the results. A labeling regime was successfully established. Refrigerating appliance market transformed. Collection and dismantling center established. CFCs recovered. Rebate scheme established. And a new financing mechanism has been introduced, Eco Fridges Go. Failed test of new appliance consumption conducted, refrigerator test laboratory built, and regulatory enforcement mechanism strengthened. So all the 8 pillars were actually achieved. And these, I'm going to show you the evidence on the ground. Number 1, this label, as you see there, with the yellow background, has successfully become the household mark of energy efficiency in Ghana. And a special purpose vehicle, a rebate scheme, was successfully put in place, implemented, and out of that, over 10,000 inefficient fridges were retrieved from homes, and same amount were pushed to homes. Same amount in terms of those that are new, energy efficient, and consumes little energy were pushed in place of the old ones that were retrieved from homes. So beyond that, the project requested that we should have some lessons that can help a scale up. And the scale up is the Eco Fridges Go Green that has been established. This is an innovative financing mechanism that is coming on the back of the rebate scheme that we implemented. And these Eco Fridges, the fridges and the air conditioners that qualify to be part of the program are super efficient ones. And as I speak, we have crossed 1,000 marks. It means that over 1,000 of super efficient cooling appliances have been purchased for use in homes. Additionally, this is an evidence of refrigerator test laboratory firmly established at the Ghana Standards Authority, and it's working. This has gone a long way to improve on our ability to do verification and monitoring. Now, this is an evidence of transformed market. Just as I read to you the mouthful title of the project, what needs to be noted here is market transformation. And this is evidence of a transformed market. If you look at the line graph, the green line that you see is very steep, and that is diminishing or declining energy consumption on the average in Ghana. Before this project, the average consumption of a refrigerator in Ghana was in the region of 1,200 kilowatt hours in a year. Now, we have fallen below 300 kilowatt hours. Prices in dollar terms are declining. However, volumes remain the same. On the savings side, we saved 400 gigawatt hours, which is equivalent to a third of the third hydro dam that we have in Ghana, Bui, which has a generation capacity of 1,200 gigawatt hours in a year. So with this amount of money and this project, a third of that output was saved. And with the enhanced and robust enforcement, 50,000 used imported fridges have been seized, sent to the collection and dismantling site to be destroyed. This is an evidence of the collection and dismantling site, where CFCs totaling 1,500 kilograms have been recovered. So the seized and the exchange fridges are sent to this point where the refrigerants are scientifically recovered, and then the refrigerator dismantled, and then the metals are separated from the plastics and all that. So this is an evidence of sustainable development. Before this project, Ghana used to be the hub of imported, used, and inefficient refrigerating appliances that were littered everywhere that you pass. People were patronizing, and the grid was suffering. But with this project, now we have moved on to new, efficient appliance market, fridges that come well labeled. And beyond that, we have a bubbling assembly plant that has come up. And this is sustainable development. And I want to end by saying that technical assistance is good, but assistance for implementation is better. With this amount of money that was given by the multilateral funding agency, we have succeeded in transforming entirely the refrigerating appliance market in Ghana. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. We have succeeded in transforming the refrigerator appliance market in Ghana. So on that note, we have the government agency that is responsible for mobilizing climate finance. So without much ado, the Ministry of Finance is being represented by Foster Abuaji Jemfi. So he will tell us what are some of the challenges or the lessons that the ministry has learned over the years since they took over the responsibility of mobilizing resources for implementation of climate action in Ghana. Foster.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm sure what has been said by my colleague panelists is in place. And as a country, we've been doing much over the period. What we've been doing is just not in a vacuum. It's hinged on an approved documentation that the country is running with. The initial is the National Climate Change Policy that the country approved in 2014. And in it spells out how we want to transit in terms of in green economy. Now, over the period, we have been trying to mobilize climate finance in various diverse. And one currently is the national budget. And in the national budget, over the period, we have tried very much to increase the budget component for climate finance. And based on that, now there's a lot that is going to climate finance. The other thing is also creating the enabling environment, and based on that, government has been able to facilitate a lot of funding, and this has been channeled through the banking sector that is being made available to SMEs and institutions. Now, moving from the national funding to climate finance, we have also been engaging the on bilateral basis, and through that we've been able to engage the embassies and gotten them to channel a lot of climate finance for the country. On the multilateral angle, we also have been engaging some multilaterals funds such as the Adaptation Fund, the Climate Investment Fund, the Global Environment Facility, and also the Green Climate Fund. Within the adaptation, we've been able to access about $8 million, and within the GCF, also been able to access a little above $160 million. Now, currently, what the ministry want to do is to be able to assess a much innovative kind of financing to be able to push the country's agenda when it comes to climate finance. And therefore, now we buy into carbon market, which is under the Article 6. And I'm aware, as the Executive Secretary of Environmental Protection Agency did hint, that currently we have also signed a bilateral agreement with the Swiss, and we want to have a cooperation with them to be able to access some funding from them. We want to move from this bilateral to do much more under the Article 6.4, where we are going to the open market. And the Minister of Finance is very key in this area, and we have started a very serious engagement in that area. On the other side, we're also looking at going to another area of which is the green bond. Currently, we have been working on the framework to be able to that will guide us in terms of how the process and other things will be done. So very soon we'll be coming out in terms of the green bond. In terms of the lessons that we have learned over the period, I think we have been observing a lot of movement from the agreement that was given by the COP, because the initial agenda was for the developed countries to be supporting the developing countries to be able to implement action that will help the global goal of being able to reduce the global temperature to 2 degrees and a pathway of 1.5. And to do that, we were expected to be funded, provided the needed funding to do that. But currently, what we see when it comes to the multilateral is the shift from providing the needed soft financing to pushing for loans for the developing countries, which I think is not helping very much, which means the developing countries would have to be paying for these things in future, and I'm sure it will deter the developing countries from achieving much from there. The other thing that we have also learned is that instead of the support that should be given to the developing countries to be able to implement its own action, currently we see that a lot of these funding comes in the form of technical assistance, and this technical assistance is not trickling down to the developed countries as expected. Now, I believe that there was an initial pledge of 100 billion, as was indicated. And as we come to this Conference of Party, the 26th, we are stressing that countries need to put in much effort to be able to provide the needed funding. We also would want to invite the private sector to come on board, because we believe that there are a lot of funding that is in the possession of the private sector, and we can work together to be able to get a lot of this done in a very nice way. So having said this, I believe that we stand a chance if we work together, and also as we work together as developed and developing countries. So I believe there's a lot that we can do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ghana has a lot to do. So on that note, Forestry Commission has been very proactive in engaging the international community when it comes to resource mobilization, and they have learned several lessons: the bitter, the sweet, and sometimes the sour. So I'll call on my own director responsible for climate change at the Forestry Commission to tell us their experience, especially what she has gone through. Rosalind, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dotse, and a very good afternoon from this part of the world to everybody who is connected to our event. And really, I believe that the subject that we are discussing is very important, because without finance, we can have all the strategies that we would want to put on paper for 1.5, but we are not going to achieve it. And for the Forestry Commission, we have, within the past about 12 to 14 years, engaged in the REDD+ mechanism, which is under the Paris Agreement Article 5, where we are actively putting in place measures to reduce emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. And within that space, we have been able to attract funding from the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, and then also from the Green Climate Fund. And on both sides, we have very interesting stories, and I'm going to share a few of our challenges and then also our opportunities. First of all, in most instances, we underestimate the needed technical capacity to attract climate finance. You would have to mobilize a lot of technical force to put your concept together, to put your proposals together. And it is not just to be done by one institution, even if it is for the forestry sector. For example, you're addressing the drivers of deforestation. They are basically outside the forestry sector. You're talking about agricultural expansion. You would need the Ministry of Agric, you would need your communities, you would need civil society, NGOs, all to come together. So the collective technical capacity to put together a funding proposal or a concept note is very, very important. And in most cases, it's a challenge because our institutions possibly are not set up like that unless you put in a mechanism consciously. And for Ghana, our RED Plus process afforded us that opportunity because we are implementing RED Plus through an inclusive and a very transparent process. The second challenge I want to highlight is the financial support or mobilization needed to receive the expected climate finance. This is also very important. So in bringing people together, you'd have to organize meetings, you have to organize workshops. These things really do take time. So you'd actually need some seed funding to organize and put your house in order and have a very strong proposal to attract the climate financing you need. And this is also another challenge that normally we do not consider, that you need some seed funds to be made available. And these seed funds, obviously, in the best case scenario, should be generated by the institution that is going forward to look for the funding. But in most instances, the institutions don't have it. So, for example, when we were trying to access the Green Climate Fund, we had the opportunity of the United Nations Development Program supporting us to receive funding from the Italian government to organize these workshops. So that is on one side. And without that support, we couldn't have put together the technical expertise to develop a very robust funding proposal and to do the ground work mobilization with communities, which is very, very taxing. The third challenge I want to bring to the fore is the bureaucracy and the time lag in between putting forward your funding proposal and the actual receipt of funds. So there's an instance where we had to put in a funding proposal in the year 2018, and we had funds only in 2021. That is 3 years. And within that period of 3 years, a lot of things would have changed on the ground. If you are not careful, your stakeholders would have lost the momentum. You would have crashed some expectations. And even the quantification of the elements that are going into your funding proposal, the cost elements would have changed over time. And then you receive the funds and you realize that they are not even able to cater for what you expected to do 3 or 4 years ago. So the bureaucracy and then the time lag in between actually putting forward your proposal and receiving funds is very challenging. And for a sector like the forestry sector, which is not static, quite very dynamic with issues of deforestation and forest degradation always manifesting in a different form. For 3 years, you can have anything happen in a landscape, and it can get quite disturbing. The fourth challenge is the fact that now for most of the multilateral funds or any climate financing stream, there is the need for government co-financing, which in our experience, we realize that governments have not built themselves for that. First of all, going back to the 100 billion pledge, possibly we have over-relied on that, that is going to come in, but that also hasn't come in. So now we are expected to come up with some level of co-financing to then attract the external climate finance, which can also become very challenging and would lead to some level of delays and also commitments and negotiations in country. Enough of the challenges, looking at the opportunities. With all these challenges, there are also the very good sides. For example, our experience with the FCPF, that's the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility of the World Bank. They were ready with fast start finance for RED Plus implementation when even the GCF structures were not set up. So we have had the opportunity to receive funding for RED Plus readiness activities before the official GCF structure was set up and for countries to access. So this was a very good opportunity for us, and we used that capacity that we built over about 10 to 12 years. We used that capacity to put together a GCF proposal when the GCF was set up and we were ready to access the financing. Another opportunity is that the opportunity or the availability of multilateral funds help us to leverage private sector funding. And really, that's where we are getting to now. We have realized that governments cannot do it alone. Private sector cannot do it alone. We cannot achieve impact with this small-scale projects. We need to get into large-scale programs, either at national or sub-national levels, and we should come together. And so private sector is willing to engage once they also see that you are able to leverage such financing from multilateral sources. And that's a classic example of our Share Landscape Emission Reductions project, where we have the Global Share Alliance coming in with quite substantial co-financing support of about $9 million. Same with the Ghana Cocoa Forestry Plus program, where we also have the cocoa private sector, who have already been existent in our landscape. Ghana is the second largest producer of cocoa beans. So already the private sector actors exist, and it's just a matter of getting them to re-engineer their activities into climate-smart cocoa interventions. So our ability to get into the FCPF, our ability to get into the GCF demonstrates to private sector that government is serious about climate action, and then they're also able to engage, and it provides a very good entry point for them to do that. And overall, the biggest opportunity is the fact that you're able to implement your interventions at scale. We have subnational programs where we are engaging different communities, different districts, different regions, and the impact is more visible, and you're also able to reduce your emission reductions at such a bigger scale, which is able to then give you the resource-based payment you need to continue motivating your stakeholders that there is really a lot of value in engaging in actions on either mitigating or adapting to climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Such a brilliant presentation and an experience that is worth emulating. So on that score, we have the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. That is the ministry that is responsible for coordinating environment issues in Ghana. So there is one capable gentleman representing the ministry, the minister, who is going to tell us what he have done so far in terms of coordinating the resource mobilization, be it bilateral or multilateral in Ghana. Jima, you have the floor.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to stand in for the Director of Environment. I also like to acknowledge the challenges, lessons, and experiences that my senior colleagues here have already presented. I think basically, as the coordinating ministry, whatever we have documented over the years in terms of the challenges and lessons learned, or how we will make use of the various opportunities available to maximize our ability to mobilize funding has already been said by my senior colleagues. But to just add on to what has already been said, as a coordinating ministry who is in charge of hosting the National Climate Change Steering Committee, which is the national body responsible for coordinating all the activities in Ghana, from resource mobilization to awareness creation to capacity building and all that. We recognize the fact that in our quest to mobilize resource to implement our climate change related activities, there are challenges that all the institutions face, and together with them, we've tried our best to put in place the needed measures to address some of these challenges going forward. First among them, as Madam Rosalind said, is the capacity to be able to come up with bankable projects that will be submitted to the various multilateral and bilateral funds to receive the needed funding to implement the activities. Again, another issue has to do with how we bring on board the local private sector to be able to make funding available for us to implement our climate change related activities. And so over the years, we've taken conscious measures or effort to ensure that we are able to build the capacity of some of our national officers as well as private sector institutions to be able to mobilize funding for climate change related activities. Again, we also recognize the fact that in your effort to mobilize funds and to implement them, you need to also be very transparent. And so going forward, we've also put in place a number of measures to ensure that whatever funding we receive, the way it is disbursed, the way it's used for the implementation on the ground is very transparent between ourselves and the partners that provides us with the funding. Again, we've also worked together with the institutions to make sure that the needed policy and regulatory frameworks are being developed to ensure that we usher ourselves very well into the next phase of funding opportunities that are available. My brother Foster made mention of the fact that we are currently exploring the opportunity to use Article 6.2 and 6.4. And before we can do this, we need to have guidelines and strategies that will guide us as to how we engage with the various partners going into this. And so together with our agency, the Environmental Protection Agency, we are currently working with all the sectors to ensure that we come up with a guideline and a strategy that will guide Ghana going forward in dealing with issues pertaining to Article 6.2 and the rest. Madam Rosalie made one key point that without funding, the various NDCs that all the countries have submitted will just be a list, right? My boss, Dr. Benefo and Peter Derry, also always tell me the same thing. The NDCs we have now are only a wish list. They can actually become something that gives us the needed development that we want when funding is made available for us to implement them. I think 2 days ago, the head of the Secretariat submitted the initial assessment report of the ex-ante projections of the emissions that the various countries have submitted. And you could see that, I mean, we are joking as a world in our quest to address climate change, to get to the 2 degrees that we want. And my question is that if this funding are not made available, the ex-post projections, how would it look like? This is where I leave my statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If these funds are not made available, what then happens to all the efforts that the IPCC has given to the world? So on that score, food is also one of the areas that have been impacted by climate change. And in Ghana, it is not Ghana alone. Everybody needs food in order to survive. So I will call on a capable director from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to also share his experience on how the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is also trying to redefine their role in the multilateral and the bilateral process of mobilizing climate finance to address what we have identified in our nationally determined contributions. Kingsley, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sami, and I'm also grateful for the invitation extended to me to participate in this panel discussion. Let me start by saying that once we are talking about 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees, the focus has been on mitigation. And therefore, funding has also shifted focus to mitigation, forgetting that we can reduce emissions, but we also need to eat to survive. And therefore, it is important to also address the issue of adaptation. In the convention and its other agreements, adaptation is a key issue that needs to be discussed, and agriculture falls more under the adaptation. So the Ministry of Food and Agriculture in Ghana has, over the years, been trying to mobilize the needed resources through mainly bilaterals and also partnering with other institutions to source multilateral funding. So the ministry uses two-pronged approaches. The first one is to approach financial institutions like the World Bank, the African Development Bank, IFAD, to also develop project proposals factoring in climate change and climate change adaptation as part of the project implementation strategies to secure the food and nutrition requirements of the country
and also contribute to exporting food to other countries so that we will be healthy, we will be strong to be able to undertake the other activities or actions that are relevant for contributing to reducing the emissions that we generate. And the other approach is to partner other institutions like Forestry Commission, the EPA, the MESTI, Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, and then the private sector and the NGOs and CSOs in also implementing climate change adaptation projects and interventions. With that, we've been able to sensitize or support farmers, build their capacities so that the activities that they implement on the ground that contribute to emissions are now being implemented in a different way with the objective of reducing emissions. So by that, we are indirectly contributing to emission reduction. But then the challenges that we have faced over the years, as I enumerated earlier, is because the climate financing focuses more on mitigation, it becomes a challenge if you submit adaptation projects to attract the needed funding. And therefore, since 2018, the ministry, in collaboration with the Environmental Protection Agencies, submitted a project proposal to the GCF. And as we speak, all we have been receiving from the GCF are comments on the proposal. Meanwhile, actions are happening on the ground that are contributing to emissions, and we need to act. Secondly, we also need to leverage private sector funding. But then, the private sector players in the agriculture sector don't have that muscle to attract the needed capital to be able to support the requirements that are needed to be able to deliver the funding that is required to implement climate actions on the ground. So I want to use this platform to plead that the focus of GCF should be balanced. Yes, it is indicated as 50-50, but on the ground or actionably, we are seeing a shift towards the mitigation more than the adaptation. And since agriculture is key in contributing to emission reductions, I think it is relevant that they reconsider their decision and then come back to the 50-50 balance that was promised. For the time, because of time's sake, I want to end here and then give the platform back to the moderator so that we can proceed from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kingsley, for that intervention. I know my boss, Honorable Henry Kokofu, is very passionate about resource mobilization to implement climate actions in Ghana. Honorable, the world is looking at you now. What is your message to the international community as far as making available the resources that has been promised in 2010, 100 billion. Now they are moving away from that to 2025. What is the message from you to the international community when it comes to resources that are to be made available for developing countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and the rest coming from the South in order for them to achieve their needed actions?
I cannot say much, but to dwell on the foundations that's been laid by my president, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He reiterates the fact that the world is disappointed, the developing world is disappointed in the G20 countries, for not being able to redeem that pledge. And then again, the fact that we are the less emitters, and yet we bear the brunt. And we are being called upon to contribute to the mitigation of climate change effects. And it is a responsibility on all of us, and a shared one as such. So coming up with determinants, coming up with lineup or list of contributions that we intend doing, and like my colleague panelists have said, one after the other, it requires funding to do all those things. You cannot do them in isolation, given that the Africa Development Bank has come out clearly to say that Africa needs about $3 trillion to be able to fully realize the dreams of that. We are here, the world is all over here, talking about climate change, its mitigation and adaptation. People are dying. People are dying. The island states being subsumed, washing away, diseases all over the place, everywhere. Hunger, people go hungry. Go to the Saharan districts or regions, and you find livestock dying, human beings dying, all because of climate change. And there are a lot of money sitting out there that can be released to actuate most of these dreams and ambitions that we've been talking about all over the years, with COPs up to 26, number 26. So again, my president said we have about 3 crises on our hands. We have the COVID crisis, we have the climate change crisis, and we have poverty and hunger crisis on our hands as a people of this world. So the concerted effort, the passion with which we all have to put in to address these crises is very, very important and very necessary. It is not about a section of the world population coming in to beg or coming in to ask for help. It is about coming in to help all of us to get around some of these things. The monies are needed, the funds are needed to be able to offset most of these effects. And if we can do that, we must have a level playing field where the poor and the rich sit on the same table, dialogue and negotiate on equal terms. I accept we come in with a disadvantage or on a disadvantaged position because we've not been able to harness our natural resources to address our developmental agenda, just as the rich nations have done. They disturbed the environment. They degraded the environment before they got to where they are. And now, after doing that, they have the capacity and the muscle to repair their environment. It's about time we are given the same chance and opportunity to do so in a sustainable manner. The SDGs, we signed on as nations, and we gave ourselves to up to 2030. Isn't that the case? Are we getting there? Is the world getting there? So we must up our game. We must be frank. We must say it as it is to one another. And our colleagues, our brothers on the divide, who has it? The Muslim, the industrialized countries. We ask them to redeem their pledge. People are dying. The world is getting to its end. Let us save the planet. Thank you.
Let us save the planet. I think on that score, Professor Kirk, 30 seconds. Your message to the UK government and the rest of the international partners.
Well, it's clear that funding is required. And we've talked about the scale of that. That is absolutely clear. For me, I think the liberation of the funding under the Global Challenges Research Fund for the projects I've been involved in and my colleagues in the UK and elsewhere in the world, it was transformational. It's been a shame, to say the least, that money has now essentially dried up. And I would plead to the British government that it reconsiders the funding to support genuine, equitable and collaborative projects that address the significant challenges that we face currently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think on that score, let me, on behalf of myself and the good people of Ghana, thank the panelists for this thought-provoking contribution to the discussion that we have here, Mobilizing Green Climate Fund to catalyze climate action, the lessons that have been learned from both multilateral and bilateral process. Thank you very much. The debate continues. Well done.